It was 7:15 a.m., and golden sunlight spilled through the dusty blinds of the break room on the 18th floor. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the navy blue collar of my uniform. The badge clipped to my chest read Harper Quinn, Lead Maintenance Supervisor. 10 years. 10 whole years I'd worked in this high-rise office, building in downtown Seattle. Not glamorous, but honest. I kept things spotless, floors gleaming, glass walls smudge-free, bathrooms fresh like lemon zest. People barely noticed me unless something went wrong. That's how it was in this job. "Early bird again, Harper," called out Lena, one of my crew, balancing a mop in one hand and a to-go latte in the other. I smiled. "We've got a deep clean scheduled for the 30th floor. Summit Corp's executive lounge. CEO-level sparkle required." While she sipped her overpriced brew, I handed out the morning assignments. Everyone respected the way I ran things. I didn't shout. I didn't micromanage. I just did my job and made sure they could do theirs. After sending the team off, I checked my phone. No messages. Again, it had been 6 days since I last heard from my younger sister, Chloe. We weren't always like this. We used to be inseparable pinky promises and inside jokes, but as adults, we drifted. Chloe had clawed her way into the world of luxury marketing, now engaged to some corporate big shot Elliot Blackwell, VP of Summit Corp, the very company I quietly scrubbed toilets for. I hadn't even gotten a text since Mom told me about their engagement. That evening, I found myself back in my childhood neighborhood, quiet, tidy, filled with that eerie nostalgia that tugs at your stomach. Mom's house looked the same, red bricks, trimmed hedges, that slightly cracked walkway she'd always meant to fix. I knocked and let myself in. Voices from the living room floated through the hall. "So the planner suggests white roses and navy accents," Chloe was saying. "We must accommodate Elliot's father's connections," Mom added. "There are political figures and board members attending." As I stepped in, they both froze mid-conversation. A sea of wedding brochures fanned across the table. "Hey," I said, trying to smile. Chloe stood awkwardly. "Harper, hi." "Congratulations," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I heard about the engagement." "Yes, thank you," Chloe replied, brushing an imaginary wrinkle from her skirt. "Elliot Blackwell." "As in the Summit Corp?" I asked. Her eyes lit up. "His father's the founder. Elliot is next in line." "Ah, so that's the altitude Chloe had reached. So when's the wedding?" 3 weeks, Mom chimed in, not meeting my eyes. "We're quite busy." I blinked. 3 weeks, and I haven't received an invitation. There was a beat of silence. Chloe looked at Mom. Mom pursed her lips. "Well," Mom began, "we're still finalizing the list. Elliot's family is very selective." I frowned. "Selective how?" Chloe shifted. "We didn't know how to explain your role." "My role?" Mom stood. Her tone practiced. "Harper, we told them you're in facilities management, head of corporate operations." "You mean I clean office buildings?" Mom winced. Chloe added, "They just have certain expectations." A pause. Then Mom delivered the final blow. "We told them you passed away. 10 years ago. Car accident." I stood there, heart pounding like a jackhammer. My hands shook, but my voice stayed level. "You told them I'm dead?" "It was the cleanest option," Mom said softly, like she was explaining the weather. Chloe looked down. "Please understand. Elliot's family, his father, he's traditional." My mouth went dry. "You mean judgmental?" No one answered. I laughed once, bitter and sharp. "You're ashamed of me." "No," Chloe began, but her voice cracked. "You're ashamed," I repeated. "Of me. Of this uniform. Of 10 years of back-breaking, invisible work that keeps buildings like his running." Tears threatened, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction. I turned, walking toward the door. "Harper, please," Chloe called. I stopped, just once, and said, "I'm not ashamed of what I do, but you should be ashamed of what you've done." I left. The next 3 days blurred together: work, wipe, mop, repeat. But their words clung to me like mildew. "We told them you passed away." Sometimes I caught myself staring at my reflection in a window, half expecting it to vanish like a ghost. Sunday afternoon, I was cleaning the windows in my little apartment when the doorbell rang. I peeked through the peephole. It was Mom and Chloe. Great. I opened the door. Mom looked around my modest place like it was a crime scene. Chloe, still in full designer armor, forced a smile. "We came to talk," she said. I crossed my arms. I panicked. She blurted out, "At Mom's house." I didn't mean for it to come out like that. But it did, I said. You have to understand, Mom cut in. We only have one shot at aligning with the Blackwells. Aligning? I repeated. You make it sound like a business merger. This wedding is important, Chloe whispered. His family is powerful. His father's already looked into my background. If he finds out what? I said, stepping forward. That your sister works hard? That she earns an honest living? Mom sighed. Please don't come to the wedding, Harper. The words sliced clean. I don't want them to find out, Chloe added. It's just for a few weeks. Then we can explain. No, I interrupted. You want me to disappear? Again. They stared at me, silent. Well, I said, voice trembling. You already buried me once. Should be easy to do it again. I pointed to the door. Get out. They left without another word. As the door closed behind them, I leaned against it, breath shallow, eyes burning. I looked around at my tiny apartment, my walls lined with certificates I'd earned, not from Ivy League schools or Fortune 500 jobs, but from real, honest work. Work they thought wasn't worth mentioning. Fine. If they wanted to erase me, they had no idea who they were trying to bury. The Monday after that conversation, I woke before the sun. There's something comforting about being awake while the world still sleeps. The streets were quiet, cold. My coffee tasted stronger that morning, like it knew I needed armor. By 6:00 a.m., I was already in the staff lounge of the building, reviewing task schedules. My hands were steady, but my stomach was a pit. That conversation with Chloe and Mom kept playing in a loop. Don't come to the wedding. We told them you're dead. Just a few more weeks. Weeks of pretending I didn't exist, like my life, my dignity, my years of sweat and sacrifice could be shelved like some worn-out coat. Nope. Morning, boss, said Marcus, our newest team member. He was 19, full of energy, still too excited about floor polish. Morning, I said. You're assigned to the 12th today. Conference center needs a full reset. Got it. He grinned, wheeling away his cart. Once the crew was dispatched, I grabbed my checklist and headed toward the executive levels. Every January, we did a full deep clean top to bottom, every surface, every floor, every shadow. No room untouched. And today was the 30th floor, the one with Summit Corp's executive lounge. I tapped the elevator panel, heart rattling harder than I'd admit. The irony? I'd walked these floors hundreds of times, scrubbed the bathrooms, polished the hardwoods, sanitized the coffee machine handles. But now, those same floors carried an entirely different weight. This was Chloe's world, Elliot's world, the one I didn't belong in, apparently. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped out onto plush carpet, the kind you feel under your shoes. Expensive silence filled the air. I was halfway through cleaning the floor to ceiling windows when I heard a voice behind me. I never realized how good the view looked from a clean window. I turned, startled. A tall man in a charcoal suit stood behind me. Sharp features, silver hair, calm, unreadable eyes. I recognized him instantly. Thomas Blackwell, founder and chairman of Summit Corp. Elliot's father. Crap. Mr. Blackwell, I said quickly, wiping my palms on my uniform. Sorry I didn't see you there. No need to apologize. His voice was smooth, slow. He stepped closer, gazing out the window. You've done an excellent job. This place always shines. Thank you, I managed. I lead the maintenance team. He nodded slowly, then glanced at my name tag. Harper Quinn. That's a name I've heard before. My heart froze. I kept my smile. Really? It's a common name. Maybe so, he said thoughtfully. Do you have family in the marketing industry? I swallowed. I do. You wouldn't happen to be related to Chloe Quinn, would you? And there it was. I am, I admitted carefully. She's my younger sister. His brows raised. Interesting. She mentioned she had a sister, but said you passed away years ago, that you died in a hiking accident. My throat tightened. Did she now? Thomas looked at me carefully. You seem very much alive to me. Silence hung between us. I didn't offer an explanation, and he didn't press. Instead, he turned toward the city skyline. I started this company in a windowless basement with a second-hand desk and a coffee pot that made everything taste like burnt rubber, he said. Now look at this. 30 floors up, offices with views of the bay. It's impressive, I replied. He glanced sideways. Not really. What's impressive is someone who shows up every day, takes pride in what they do, no matter what that is. His words sat heavy with meaning. "I hope to see you again, Miss Quinn," he said. "Enjoy the rest of your day." As he disappeared into the boardroom, I just stood there, frozen. Did he know? Did he really know? I finished the shift in silence, barely noticing the mop in my hands. My mind kept circling back to his eyes, sharp, curious, and not easily fooled. That night, I skipped dinner, just sat on my couch, staring at the blank TV screen. Chloe and Mom wanted me erased, but what if their lie was already unraveling? And if Thomas Blackwell knew the truth, what would he do? 2 days later, I found out. It was a normal Thursday until my phone rang during lunch. Unknown number. I let it ring out, then it rang again. Same number. Finally, I picked up. "Hello, Miss Quinn?" The voice was crisp, polite. "This is Marie from Summit Corp's executive office. Mr. Blackwell has requested a meeting with you this afternoon. His personal office, 3:15 p.m. I blinked. "You sure you have the right Harper Quinn?" "Yes, ma'am." He was very specific. I showed up early. Couldn't help it. I was wearing my cleanest uniform, hair tied back, nerves jangling like wind chimes in a storm. Marie greeted me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She led me down a long glass hallway, then opened a door to the kind of office you only see in movies' bookshelves. Whiskey decanter, oversized windows framing the skyline. Thomas Blackwell stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. "Miss Quinn," he said without turning. "Thank you for coming." I stepped inside. "You're probably wondering why I asked you here," he said. "A little," I admitted. He turned to face me. "I asked you because I wanted to confirm something, and also to apologize." "Apologize?" He nodded. "For your sister's lie, for your mother's complicity, for everything you've likely endured since they decided your truth didn't fit their version of success." I couldn't breathe for a moment. He continued, "I met you the other day without knowing who you were, and yet I respected you instantly. You carry yourself with dignity, integrity, qualities that matter far more than bloodlines and resumes." I didn't know what to say. "I confronted Chloe and your mother this morning," he said. "I asked why they lied. They stumbled through excuses, but the truth was clear. They were ashamed of you." I stared at the carpet. "I'm not," he said. "In fact, I'd be proud to have you in the family, which is why I told Elliot the truth myself." My head snapped up. He nodded. He deserves to know what kind of people he's tying his life to. Did he say anything? Thomas gave me a small smile. "I think you'll be hearing from him soon." That night I didn't sleep. At around 1 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Chloe." I let it ring. Then it buzzed again, and again. Eventually, I answered. "Harper," she said, voice frantic. I need to talk to you. Everything's falling apart." I didn't respond. I should have never lied. I know that now. I'm sorry, okay? Please, just call me back." Click. I stared at the screen. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I blocked the number. For the first time in a long time, I chose peace. Let them sit with the lie they told, because I wasn't disappearing anymore. I was done being the ghost they buried. I was done pretending my life wasn't enough. By Friday morning, word had traveled, not through gossip or texts, but through the quiet, unspoken glances from staff. The way conversations stopped when I walked into the break room. It didn't take a genius to figure it out. The lie was out, and I didn't care who knew anymore. What I hadn't expected, though, was how free I felt. I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't swallowing guilt or shame that didn't belong to me. I was just working, like I always had. But then came Sunday, the day of the wedding. I woke to gray skies and cold coffee. I hadn't planned anything for the day, just some laundry. Maybe clean my windows again. It felt symbolic somehow, as if wiping away dirt from the glass might clear the rest of my life too. At noon, my phone buzzed. I let it ring. Then it rang again. Blocked number. I ignored it. Again. 10 minutes later, it rang once more. I sighed and picked up. "Harper." Chloe's voice burst through, panicked, desperate. "Please, where are you?" I stayed quiet. "You need to come to the venue. Please." "I thought I was dead," I said flatly. I know, God, I'm sorry," she sobbed. I didn't know what else to say to them, and now everything is falling apart. I still didn't speak. Elliot knows. His father told him. They're furious. Everyone's confused. The ceremony's supposed to start in an hour and he's threatening to cancel everything. I blinked. "Why are you calling me now?" "Because I don't know how to fix this. You're the only one he respects right now." The silence on my end stretched so long she whispered, "Please, don't do this to me." I looked out the window at the cloudy sky. I wasn't even angry anymore, just tired. "Where is it?" I finally asked. "The Marrowstone Grand," she choked out. "Ballroom A." I hung up. Not for Chloe. Not for Mom. I was going for me. I pulled the dress from the back of my closet, navy silk, sleek and simple. It still had the tags on it. I'd bought it for a friend's wedding years ago, but never found the courage to wear it. I tied my hair back with purpose, steady hands, no fear. I hailed a cab, and as we climbed the hill toward the hotel, my stomach fluttered. The Marrowstone Grand was as glamorous as I remembered: columns and glass, valets in black suits, guests in gowns drifting like ghosts through the marble lobby. I paused at the entrance, heart pounding. This wasn't my world, but it also wasn't theirs alone. I walked up to the front desk. "I'm looking for the Foster Blackwell wedding," I said. The concierge looked surprised. "Ballroom A, just down the main hall. There's been a delay." Of course there had. I took a deep breath and walked toward the ballroom. Outside the heavy double doors, a group of guests murmured in confusion. An older woman gasped when she saw me. "You're Chloe's sister," she whispered, eyes wide. I nodded. "They said you were dead?" I offered, dryly. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I didn't wait. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The scene was chaos. Chloe stood at the center of the room, in full wedding gown. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Mom paced behind her like a general about to lose a war. Elliot stood on the far side, arms folded, his face stone. And Thomas Blackwell? He was seated near the front, quiet, unreadable. All eyes turned to me. Mom was the first to speak. "What are you doing here?" "You invited me," I said calmly. "Or did you forget the frantic phone call 20 minutes ago?" Chloe rushed over. "Harper, thank you. I didn't know if you'd actually come." "I wasn't sure either," I said. Elliot walked toward us, slow, deliberate. His gaze searched my face. "So you're Harper?" "Yes," he nodded once. "Your sister told me you were gone." "For 10 years, apparently. Hiking accident." My jaw tightened. Apparently I slipped off a cliff. And into shame. He let out a humorless laugh. I didn't like being lied to, but I respect the truth, even when it's messy. Chloe stepped forward. "Elliot, I can explain." "No," he interrupted, gently but firmly. "You can't. Not yet." He turned to Thomas. "Dad?" Thomas stood. "I've heard enough explanations for today." Then, to me, he said, "Miss Quinn Harper, would you mind telling us the truth?" "The real one?" I nodded. My heart was racing, but my voice was clear. "My name is Harper Quinn. I've worked for this company for 10 years. I lead the maintenance division. I clean this building with a team I trained and trust. I take pride in what I do. And I was erased from this family's narrative because my job didn't fit their script." The room was dead silent. "I didn't come here to ruin anything," I added, "but I won't hide anymore either. I don't care about your money or your reputation. I care about respect, and I wasn't given any, not by my own blood." Mom opened her mouth, but Thomas held up a hand. "Let her finish." I looked directly at Chloe. "You didn't need to lie. I was never the one who was embarrassed." Chloe broke down, her knees trembling. I thought I was protecting the image. I didn't realize I was destroying the truth. Elliot looked at her. "I fell in love with you because I believed you were honest, that you were grounded. You hid your sister's life like it was a stain, but she's the most real person in this room." Chloe was crying now, fully sobbing. Elliot stepped back. "This wedding can't go forward. Not like this." A loud gasp echoed from the guests. "I need time," he said. "We all do." Thomas nodded. "A wise decision." Then, to me again, "You've shown more character in 5 minutes than I've seen from most people in my life. You're not just welcome here, you're someone this family should aspire to be." I didn't cry. Not yet. But something loosened in my chest. Chloe stood there, stunned. I ruined everything. I looked at her. Really looked at her, my little sister, buried in lace and regret. "No," I said gently. "You still have time to rebuild it. But this time, do it with truth." Outside, the sky had cleared. Blue peeked through the clouds like it had been waiting. I walked down the hotel steps as murmurs followed me. Some people looked shocked, some confused, but I didn't care. I wasn't walking away in shame. I was walking away whole. For the first time in years, I slept like a stone. No spinning thoughts, No hollow ache behind my ribs, just sleep, deep, dreamless, and still. The morning after the wedding that wasn't, I woke to sunlight cutting across my bedroom floor. Warm, clean. The city outside moved on like nothing had happened, but inside me, something had shifted. Finally, I brewed coffee and watched the steam rise, holding the mug like it anchored me. No apologies, no second guessing, no more erasing myself to make others comfortable. I didn't know what would happen next, whether Chloe and Elliot would patch things up, or if my mother would ever face what she'd done, but for once, that wasn't my problem to solve. Still, a part of me wondered what came after a truth like that, a truth big enough to crack a family in half. I got my answer 5 days later. I was on lunch break, sitting behind the building by the delivery ramp, my favorite quiet corner, when a familiar voice called out. "Mind if I sit?" I turned. It was Chloe. She wasn't wearing design or anything, just jeans, a sweater, and a worn look on her face like she hadn't slept much either. I nodded toward the milk crate beside me. "Go ahead." She sat down, hugging her knees like she used to as a kid. For a few seconds, we just listened to the distant hum of traffic. "I know I was wrong," she said quietly. "I said horrible things, lied, rewrote you out of our lives like you were some kind of mistake." I didn't interrupt. "But what hurts the most is, I convinced myself I was doing it for the right reasons," she added. "I thought success meant looking perfect, and you reminded me of everything I tried to bury." "That's because I never played dress up with my life," I said. "I just lived it." She looked down. "Elliot's taking time to think. He hasn't called." I didn't say anything. "I don't blame him," she continued. I lied to him, and to myself. More silence. Then she turned to me. "Do you hate me?" I sipped my coffee. "No, but I don't trust you. Not yet." She nodded. "Fair." We sat in silence for a while. Eventually, I spoke again. "You know, there's nothing wrong with wanting to rise, with dreaming big. But if you have to bury someone to get there, maybe you're climbing the wrong ladder." Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "I want to start over," she said. "Not with you, not just as sisters, but with myself." I believed her, or at least I believed she meant it right then. "Then start," I said. "But don't ask me to fix you." A week passed. Then 2. And slowly, like moss creeping across stone, things began to change. Chloe didn't vanish this time. She called once a week, sometimes just to say hi, sometimes to ask what she should cook with leftover rice. She wasn't perfect, not even close, but she was trying, with less polish and more heart. Even Mom surprised me. It started with a letter, an actual handwritten one, folded in half, left in my mailbox with no return address. "Harper, I've spent too many years chasing shadows. I mistook social standing for security. But I see now I was clinging to a version of success that came with a cost. And that cost was you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope we can talk. Margaret." The first read it twice, then 3 more times. And I cried not out of pain this time, but because a part of me had always believed she'd never see me. Not really, but maybe. She was starting to. The next Sunday, Chloe invited me to brunch. Just her and me. Neutral territory. A small cafe on Pine Street. No tablecloths. No forced smiles. She wore no makeup. I wore a t-shirt with a bleach stain. We talked about work, about childhood, about the time I let her cut my hair, and she cried when it turned out crooked. It was easy, honest, no masks. When the check came, she reached for it. I didn't stop her. Outside, we lingered on the sidewalk. "Thanks for coming," she said. I shrugged. "Thanks for not calling me dead this time." She winced, then laughed a soft, embarrassed sound. "We're a mess," she said. "Yeah," I smiled. "But maybe we're done pretending to be anything else." A few weeks later, something wild happened. I got called into Summit Corp's executive office again. I thought maybe I'd left a mop bucket in the wrong spot, or used the wrong cleaning solvent on the conference table. My anxiety always went to the worst-case scenario. But no. Thomas Blackwell greeted me personally. "Harper," he said, motioning to the chair across from his desk. "Sit." I sat. "I'm starting a new initiative," he said. "Employee equity, dignity, and recognition across all departments, from top floor to basement. And I want your input." I blinked. "My input? You've led the cleaning division for a decade, quietly, effectively, and without ever asking for credit. I want that perspective at the table. Like a committee? I asked, unsure. Like a promotion, he said, sliding an envelope across the desk. Facilities Operations Deputy Director. You'll be overseeing building-wide performance improvements, policy updates, and interdepartmental strategy. Same team, bigger influence. I opened the envelope. The salary made me exhale hard. I'm not a manager, I said, unsure. I mean, I don't wear suits. He chuckled. Good. We've got enough suits. I need people who know what work actually looks like. I stared down at the offer. My fingers trembled. You don't have to answer today, he said, but I already knew my answer. That night, I sat on my apartment floor, barefoot, surrounded by candles and leftover takeout. I wasn't thinking about the wedding, or the lies, or the years I spent being invisible. I was thinking about how strange it is that sometimes, when you stop chasing people's approval, they finally start seeing you. I picked up my phone and texted Chloe. Dinner next week? Your place this time. I'll bring wine. You handle dessert. And no store-bought shortcuts. She replied almost instantly. Deal. I owe you cheesecake anyway. I smiled. For the first time, our relationship wasn't built on expectation or comparison. It was built on truth. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Spring crept in like a quiet apology. Rain softened. The air turned warmer. Cherry blossoms fluttered down in slow motion across the sidewalks of downtown Seattle. I noticed them more these days, small things, silent things. Like maybe I had more room in my chest now that I wasn't carrying everyone else's expectations on my back. Work had changed too. I still cleaned, though less often. My role had shifted from scrubbing baseboards to shaping policy, meetings, proposals, budget reviews, and believe it or not, actual decision-making. Some days, I missed the rhythm of the mop, the way it grounded me. But other days, I sat in rooms full of suits and said things like, dignity for every floor, and watched men in silk ties nod like it had never occurred to them before. It was surreal. My new title read, Deputy Director of Facilities and Employee Wellness. Fancy, sure. But I still signed emails with just Harper, because titles were never the point. One afternoon, I walked into the maintenance office to check on Marcus and the crew. They were swapping jokes over a box of donuts, music playing from someone's phone. Hey, boss lady, Marcus grinned. We thought you traded us in for the glass tower upstairs. I laughed. Tempting, but nobody else brings maple bars like you guys. Truth was, this room still felt more like home than the boardroom ever would. I leaned against the wall as they talked about upcoming floor repairs and restroom remodels. No drama, no lies, just people doing their jobs and laughing through it. When I stepped out into the hallway, I ran into Thomas Blackwell. He nodded at the team behind me. You've built something solid down here. I shrugged. All I did was pay attention. That's rare, he said. Most people only look up. Maybe that's the problem, I replied. Everything worth building starts at ground level. He smiled, but it wasn't condescending. It was thoughtful. How's your family? I exhaled. Healing. Slowly. He gave a slight nod. That's the only kind of healing that lasts. Chloe had changed too. I didn't expect miracles. I didn't need them. But she was different now, less curated, more present. She had taken a step back from her agency job, gone freelance. Said she was tired of pitching luxury brands to people who didn't even want what they were selling. We had dinner every Thursday now, just the two of us, no filters. One night it was takeout on her couch. The next, burnt pasta at my place while we laughed over wine. Do you remember when we tried to build a blanket fort in the living room, and Mom made us take it down because it looked messy? Chloe asked once, mid-giggle. Yeah, I said. That fort was our best work. She never liked messy, Chloe added. Maybe she never understood what real looked like. We both fell quiet after that, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was honest. Then, one day, out of nowhere, Mom called. I hesitated before answering, but curiosity got the better of me. Hi, Harper, she said, voice careful. Do you have a minute? I do. I was wondering. She trailed off, gathering herself. Would you mind if I visited your workplace? Just once. I'd like to see it, I blinked. You want to see the building? No, she said gently. I want to see your world, the one I was too proud to understand. I told her to meet me the following Tuesday. She showed up in a cardigan and slacks, carrying a small notepad like she was visiting a museum. I took her through every hallway, introduced her to the crew, let her see the spreadsheets and schedules and long hours behind just cleaning. She stood quietly through it all. By the end of the tour, we sat together in the break room. "I had no idea," she said, looking around. "I know. I was wrong." I didn't respond. I let her sit with the weight of that. "Do they know how much you do?" she asked. "They do now." She looked at me, something soft in her eyes I hadn't seen since I was 10. "I'm proud of you, Harper." For once, it didn't sound forced. It just sounded true. Weeks turned into months. Chloe and Elliot, they took time, worked through their mess. Therapy, counseling, more honest conversations than they ever thought they'd need. Their wedding wasn't canceled, just postponed. And this time, I got an invitation. Not the kind they send out of obligation, but one with my name handwritten on the front. Inside it read, "To Harper, the sister who taught us all how to stand up, speak out, and stay true. Without you, none of this would have meant anything. Come as you are because that's exactly who we love." I cried when I read it, not loud, not broken, just soft tears, the kind that come when something long overdue finally arrives. The wedding took place at a small garden venue by the water. Nothing grand, nothing for show, just close friends, family, and a gentle breeze. I wore a deep green dress that didn't try to impress anyone. Chloe wore a simple gown with no diamonds or beading, just soft fabric and sincerity in her eyes. Elliot stood beside her, looking both calm and grateful. When he saw me, he stepped forward and said, "Thank you, Harper, for everything." I nodded. "You've got yourself a stubborn bride. I like her that way." We shared a quiet laugh. During the vows, Chloe said, "I once believed perfection was the goal, but I've learned that truth is what makes love real." And no one taught me that more than my sister. People turned to look at me. I didn't hide. I stood tall. That night, at the reception, after the dancing and the speeches, Chloe came up beside me holding 2 glasses of champagne. "To new beginnings?" she said. "No," I replied with a smirk. "To honest ones." We clinked glasses. Later, as I walked to my car alone under a sky full of stars, I passed a group of guests I didn't recognize. "Is that her?" one whispered. "That's Harper, right? The sister they..." "Yeah," another said. "But she's the one who saved it all." I didn't say anything. I just kept walking, because I didn't need anyone else's version of me anymore. I knew exactly who I was, and that was enough. 6 months later, the city breathed different. Not louder, not softer, just clearer, like rain had washed old things away and left something quiet in their place. From my apartment window, I could see the whole skyline. It shimmered at night, especially the Summit Corp building, which now had a new mural in the lobby, one painted by a local artist to honor every worker who keeps the city standing. Janitors, mechanics, cafeteria staff, maintenance crews. No gold plaques, no names, just hands in motion. That mural meant more to me than any award ever could. My apartment was warm that evening, full of voices and the smell of rosemary chicken. I'd invited the people who mattered most now, people who had shown up, stayed in the mess, and helped clean the emotional dust we'd all ignored for years. Chloe and Elliot came early, carrying dessert and a new board game they claimed I'd love. My crew from work brought beer and bad jokes. Even Thomas Blackwell stopped by briefly with a bottle of expensive wine he claimed tasted better than it should. And Mom? She came last. She knocked quietly, like she wasn't sure she was allowed in. When I opened the door, she smiled. "I brought your favorite," she said, holding up a small container. "Peach cobbler. Made it myself." "No canned stuff this time?" I asked, teasing. She grinned. "Only fresh." I stepped aside and let her in. We all sat around my dining table, mismatched chairs and folding stools squeezed in tight. Plates full, wine glasses clinking, laughter rising, soft and real. No performance, no masks, just people flawed, healing, and trying. At one point, Chloe leaned over and whispered, "You know, your apartment feels bigger these days." I smiled. That's what happens when the weight lifts. Elliot raised his glass mid-toast. To Harper, whose strength forced all of us to finally look in the mirror. People clapped, some nodded, and Mom, sitting beside me, reached out and gently touched my hand. "I'm proud of the woman you are," she said quietly. "And I'm sorry I didn't see her sooner." I didn't cry, not this time. Instead, I gave her hand a light squeeze and said, "Better late than never." Later that night, when the dishes were done and the lights were low, Chloe and I stood on my balcony watching the city flicker below. She took a long breath. Remember that time we got in trouble for sneaking out to the park after dark? I chuckled. You blamed me, and I let you. I was scared, she said, but you always made it feel like we'd be okay. I looked at her. We are okay. It just took a little longer than we thought. She nodded, eyes misty. Thank you for not giving up on me. I didn't do it for you, I said. I did it for the truth. At work, change kept coming. The new leadership initiative I'd helped launch was gaining traction. Staff from all departments, janitorial, clerical, even cafeteria, were now invited into quarterly meetings. Real voices in real rooms. One morning, I found a sticky note taped to my locker. Thanks for reminding this place that we matter. Anonymous. I didn't need to know who left it. I just smiled and stuck it on my clipboard next to the others I'd collected over the years. Small notes, forgotten thank yous, reminders of a job well done, reminders of value beyond title. By summer, Chloe and Elliot had rescheduled the wedding. A smaller one. Backyard ceremony. Homemade vows. Less sparkle, more soul. This time, there were no lies. No seating chart politics. Just truth. Imperfect and honest, Chloe asked me to stand beside her. Not as a symbol of family repaired, but because, in her words, you've always been the one holding me up, even when I didn't deserve it. And when she walked down that makeshift aisle in our aunt's garden, barefoot and laughing, I knew we'd finally built something real, not out of performance, but out of light. Mom surprised us all that day. After the vows, she gave a short toast. Nothing fancy, just her voice, shaking a little, holding a glass with chipped polish on her fingers. I used to think appearances mattered most, she said, but standing here now, I know better. What lasts is honesty. What matters is love built on truth. And my daughters, they taught me that. She raised her glass to Harper and Chloe, two roots from the same tree, growing in different directions, but always connected. There wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. That night, after the cake and laughter and barefoot dancing in the grass, I sat alone for a moment under the string lights, quiet again, but not empty. Chloe walked over, barefoot and holding her heels in one hand. You okay? She asked. I nodded. More than okay. She sat beside me. You think we'll mess it all up again? Maybe, I said, but we'll fix it faster next time. We both laughed. Then, for a long moment, we just sat in the stillness, two sisters, older now, braver, softer in the right places, stronger in the rest. Now I wake up every day knowing I was never buried. I was planted. And from the dirt, from the silence, from every ignored corner and quiet shift I cleaned, I grew. My legacy isn't a title or a corner office. It's the people who no longer feel invisible because someone finally saw them. It's the truth that cracked through the lies and made room for light. Its dust turned to dignity. And it's mine. Story 2. Gray clouds covered the Chicago sky, and the pavement was pounded by an unusually cold rain. In the La Piazza kitchen, Olivia Brown was wiping perspiration from her forehead while using her hands to make one last check of the special menu for today. Commonplace materials were turned into artistic creations. She had developed the skill over the course of her 10-year career as a chef, but it was also a natural talent. Olivia, is the table 9 risotto ready? The kitchen reverberated with the voice of Chef Marco. Yes, Olivia said, hurriedly putting the finishing touches on. Just another minute. Reservations were difficult to come by at La Piazza, one of the most well-known Italian eateries in the area, where she worked as sous chef. Olivia had been saving money for her own restaurant in Chicago for 10 years. In just a few more months, she had saved a sizable sum of $150,000, gradually deducting special catering jobs from her monthly salary and occasionally working late into the night. She would eventually be able to open her own place after reaching her goal amount. Olivia, you did another fantastic job tonight. After closing, Marco gave her a gentle pat on the shoulder. When you finally get out on your own, I'll be sad. Olivia grinned. That's still a little ways off. When she returned to her apartment, Olivia's smartphone rang. The screen displayed Mom. She hesitated slightly before answering. Olivia, can you come for dinner tomorrow? I have something important to tell you. Martha's voice had an unusual excitement to it. I can come since it's my day off. Did something happen? It's about Brittany. Wonderful news. Of course it's about Brittany. Olivia thought her 27-year-old sister had always been the center of their parents' attention. Brittany was beautiful and sociable, fitting perfectly into the mold of the perfect daughter her parents had always wanted. Meanwhile, Olivia had chosen what they considered an unstable career in cooking, disappointing their expectations. At least that's how her parents seemed to feel. The next day, Olivia rang the doorbell at her parents' house. Her father, George, opened the door. "Hey, Olivia." He greeted her flatly, before leading her to the living room. In the living room, Martha and Brittany were sitting on the sofa, looking at something and laughing together. A large diamond ring sparkled on Brittany's finger. "Olivia." Brittany jumped up and rushed to her sister, thrusting out her left hand. "Look," Jason proposed. Brittany's fiancé, Jason Ellis, was the son of one of Chicago's wealthiest real estate families. They had met a year ago, and Brittany had proudly flaunted their relationship in front of her parents. "Congratulations." Olivia offered her sincere blessing. There was no reason not to wish her sister happiness. "The wedding is in 6 months," Brittany continued excitedly. "The Ellis family wants a formal wedding. We've already booked the venue. It's the most beautiful hotel in Chicago." "That's wonderful," Olivia replied, suddenly remembering her bank balance. She was so close to achieving her dream. Throughout dinner, the conversation focused entirely on Brittany's wedding, the dress, the guest list, the flower arrangements, and plans for the families to meet. Olivia nodded occasionally, but her thoughts drifted to her restaurant plans. So Olivia, her father's voice, suddenly interrupted her daydreaming. "We're meeting the Ellis family next Saturday. You'll be there, right?" "Of course," Olivia answered. "Where will it be?" "At La Piazza," Martha answered. When Brittany told Jason's parents that her sister worked there, they stated they'd love to dine there. William Ellis, in particular, is quite the cuisine aficionado and was fascinated. Olivia felt both astonished and pushed. She hadn't expecting such powerful individuals to visit her job, but it was also a fantastic occasion to exhibit her talents. On the night of the family gathering, in addition to her customary chores, Olivia took great care with the Ellis family's table. Each dish she made prompted exclamations of excitement when presented toward the conclusion of the dinner. A silver-haired gentleman entered in the kitchen. "May I talk with the chef?" he asked. Marco grinned and invited Olivia over. "Olivia, you have a guest. Thank you for a delicious supper." The gentleman offered his hand. "I'm William Ellis, shortly to be your sister's father-in-law." Despite her apprehension, Olivia responded professionally. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. I liked it." With a genuine face, William added, "I was moved. That ravioli in particular. It was an artistic creation. You have a real skill." Brittany was standing there as well, listening to her sister and her future father-in-law's chat. Over the following few weeks, Olivia's fleeting expression of discontent was not missed. William frequently came to La Piazza to savor Olivia's cuisine. Occasionally, he would visit the kitchen to discuss food with her. In addition to being rich, William was a real gourmet and one of the few individuals who could relate to Olivia's enthusiasm. Olivia was doing her weekly routine of checking her bank account on her laptop while sipping coffee one morning. She almost dropped her coffee cup when she saw the figures on the screen. There must be a mistake here. The numbers remained unchanged despite her repeated blinks and screen refreshes. Over a 10-year period, she had saved $150,000, but now she only had $327 left. She contacted the bank with shaking hands, and the transaction history was displayed. 2 weeks ago, a sizable withdrawal was made. Her parents' names had been used. "No, this is incorrect." Olivia begged the bank employee to do so. "This withdrawal was not authorized by me. Regretfully, your account is a shared one. Legally, your parents are able to take money out." Olivia contacted her parents in uncertainty and rage after hanging up. "Where's my savings, Dad?" Olivia's voice trembled. George Brown's voice, on the other end, was very quiet. "Oh, Brittany's wedding was held there." "What?" Olivia was shocked by what she heard. "You took my money and didn't ask. In your name, we opened the account. In case of an emergency, we retained it as a joint account. The wedding of Brittany is a significant family occasion." There was no remorse in George's voice. It was the same with Martha, who also called. "This union is a member of the Ellis family. Their status must be reflected in the ceremony. You must comprehend." Olivia couldn't speak. Her dreams vanished in an instant after 10 years of hard work, innumerable extra hours, and working holidays. She responded icily, "I'm coming over right now," and hung up. Olivia was standing at her parents' front door half an hour later. Her mom opened it. Olivia relaxed. Martha tried to calm her daughter's irate expression by saying, "This is for family." Brittany, George, and her father were seated on the sofa in the living room. Brittany was grinning at them while clutching brochures for wedding venues. "Have you done anything?" Unable to control her rage, Olivia broke down in tears. "I frantically saved the money for a decade. I intended to use it to create my own restaurant." George rose and turned to face his daughter. "Olivia, please relax. Families are meant to support one another. Support one another." Olivia shot back incredulously. "You didn't even get my permission before spending all of my life savings." Glancing up from her brochure, Brittany regarded her sister icily. "Be less theatrical. The best hotel in Chicago will host my wedding. The Ellises anticipate it. What am I supposed to do with that?" "I don't care about your dumb dream," Brittany said. "It's more essential that I'm happy. As my sister, you ought to stand by me." Olivia was taken aback when her sister called her fantasy foolish. Olivia's voice was shaking as she said, "Give it back. Return my money. It's already been used up," George insisted. "Everything has been contracted, including the hotel deposit, the dress, the caterers, and the flowers." "How did you accomplish this?" Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "I live it. The funds I had set up for the future. Make a sacrifice for your loved ones." George yelled abruptly. "Would you like to sabotage Brittany's opportunity? Our lives will all be better if she joins the Ellis family. For the past 10 years, I have been making sacrifices for my ambition." Olivia spoke louder. "I'm done." The tension in the room increased as the dispute got more heated. Despite her dejected appearance, Martha stood calmly beside her husband, obviously supporting him. "You are no longer a daughter of this household if you continue to act in such a self-centered manner." George erupted with rage. "Leave now." Olivia stopped. In reality, her family was planning to desert her in favor of her sister. "All right," she replied softly. "But keep in mind that money isn't the only factor here. You violated my confidence." As she walked out of the house, Brittany smiled triumphantly, and she didn't miss it. Olivia returned to her flat feeling hopeless, but in the midst of her grief and rage, she made a crucial choice. She pulled out her phone and looked through her notes for the number of the venue. Brittany had proudly displayed the brochure with that number on it. "Can I help you, Blossom Hotel?" The voice of a woman replied, "Hi there." Olivia's voice was calm as she spoke. "I would like to cancel the Brown Ellis wedding reservation. Please tell me your name." "Brown, Martha." Olivia mentioned the name of her mother. "The family has made the decision to find a different location." Olivia ended the call, fell onto her bed, and sobbed for a while. She was now separated from her family, in addition to having her 10-year dream dashed. Her phone rang early the following morning. Dad appeared on the screen. Olivia hesitated for a second before responding. "Hello, Olivia?" She had never heard the terror in George's voice before. "A horrible event has occurred. The location confirmed our cancellation over the phone. How will we proceed?" Olivia responded coolly. "Go somewhere else. You figure it out since you spent my money." "How? Are you serious, Olivia?" There was a mixture of wrath and despair in her father's voice. "I'm kidding." Olivia gave a mocking response. "My life was wrecked by you. Have you forgotten your statement regarding me? No longer belonging to this house as a daughter? However, the wedding is barely a week away." George's tone became begging. "In front of the Ellis family, we will be disgraced. I have no problem with it." Olivia hung up, then inhaled deeply. She was aware of her next course of action. She was unable to forgive her parents' treachery. However, there has to be a method to maximize this circumstance. She searched her contacts on her phone for William Ellis's number. After a recent dinner, he handed her his business card and said, "If you ever need anything." "Hi there, Ellis is speaking. This is Olivia Brown, Mr. Ellis. Have you got a moment? I need to talk about something crucial." "Naturally." "Olivia, what are you thinking about?" Olivia inhaled deeply before telling him everything. Her 10 years of savings, her desire of starting a restaurant, how her parents had spent the money without getting her consent, and how she had been kicked out of the house. She was honest with him about the venue cancellation as well. The other end of the line was silent for a long time. "This is unexpected." William seemed to be controlling his rage by speaking in a low voice. "In fact, just yesterday, Brittany's parents requested me to pay for extra wedding-related expenses. Citing unforeseen charges, from their business. So your money was being used? Olivia responded regretfully. Yes, I wanted you to know the truth, but I don't want to upset Jason or your family. I appreciate your honesty. Olivia Williams stated in a lawyerly tone, this is a legal matter. Clearly, this is embezzlement. It is against the law to use the full sum without Olivia's permission, even in a joint account. I have no plans to sue them. I simply know that this cannot be disregarded. I'll speak with Jason. Olivia's doorbell rang that afternoon. As soon as she opened the door, William and Jason were standing there. Could we enter? Jason's face was sullen and gloomy. They were shown into the living area by Olivia. Let me start by saying, I'm sorry. Jason started. You cannot be forgiven for what Brittany's family did to you. My father filled me in on everything. You don't have to say sorry. You didn't realize? Jason responded softly. I didn't. However, I don't wish to associate with such a family. Jason, I must reevaluate the marriage. Olivia let out a startled cry. It is not necessary for you to go that far. Brittany is. Brittany has previously met with us. William spoke up. Regretfully, she displayed no sorrow. Instead, she accused Olivia of ruining everything and placed the responsibility on you. Olivia's heart was aching. Was her sister truly that different? Or had she been like this all along? Unfortunately, she muttered. Olivia. William's attitude was solemn as he glanced at her. Keep pursuing your ambition of opening a restaurant. I invest as well. I think you have a real ability. Olivia's eyes became wide with shock. However, given the ambiguity surrounding Jason and Brittany's wedding, that's a different matter. William stated coolly, business is business. Your culinary skills are something I wish to invest in. Olivia's phone had been buzzing nonstop during their talk. Brittany was calling. Jason responded, you might want to answer that. Olivia picked up the phone reluctantly. Olivia? Brittany's cry reverberated. Have you done anything? According to Jason, he is reevaluating the wedding. Everything was damaged by you. Brittany, please relax. How can I relax? The location has been canceled. My fiancé is furious. You are alone to blame. Was it my fault? Olivia's voice became icy. My life savings were stolen by all of you. Taken? You dare? Brittany spoke louder. You've been self-centered all along. Have you ever taken care of your family in any way? Olivia was crying uncontrollably. Jason, who was standing close, scowled and grabbed the phone. This is Jason. Brittany. He spoke in a firm tone. Bring your folks over to my place now. We must speak. After hanging up, he faced Olivia once again. I apologize for this incident. No. Olivia dabbed at her tears. It's me who apologizes for spoiling your great day. Nothing was ruined by you. William spoke aggressively. We will now hold a family meeting. I also want you to come to me, Olivia. Indeed, I have health issues, William remarked, getting to his feet. First, the parents will be held legally accountable. Additionally, the wedding will go according to plan if you take care of the food. Olivia gave them both a startled look. I provided food for Brittany's wedding. Your ability should not be wasted. William grinned. Additionally, I'll put $300,000 into your eatery. $300,000? Olivia repeated incredulously. Jason said, there are conditions. In order to reimburse the $150,000, your parents will need to sign a formal document acknowledging the theft. Olivia couldn't speak. Her goal was now within her grasp again, but it may cost her her family ties at the very least. Finally, she responded, let me think about it. Naturally, William gave a nod. But please make a decision right away. We're running out of time. Following their departure, Olivia looked out her apartment window at the city lights of Chicago sparkling against the lowering sky. Her heart was full with complicated feelings. Her phone rang once more hours later. Olivia, her mother, did it this time. Martha sounded teary-eyed. What's going on? Mr. Ellis had a lawyer with him. I told them the truth, Mom, Olivia said coolly, regarding how you stole my money without my consent. How I was thrown out of the house by you. Everything. We are family, though. Family indeed. Olivia remarked mockingly. It hurts so badly because of this. How can we earn your forgiveness? Martha sobbed as she said, according to Jason's father, everything may go according to plan, provided the wedding is catered. I am aware. They advised me to win Olivia over, Martha pleaded. Brittany's life is about to be destroyed. Olivia took a big breath and let it out gently. I will never be able to forgive what you guys done to me, even if I get my money back. But I'll honor my pledge to the Ellis family, she added at last. I'll take care of the wedding catering. On the other end of the phone, Martha let out a sigh of relief. But keep in mind, Olivia went on, I'm not doing this for you, but for my sister, and things will never be the same between us. Olivia hung up and dialed William. She answered resolutely, I accept your conditions. Fantastic. William sounded content in his voice. I've set up a better venue and will be preparing the contracts tomorrow. Thank you. No, thanks, William answered earnestly. Olivia, you are a really gifted person, and I can't see you get treated cruelly. Olivia's life was taking an unexpected turn, but not necessarily a negative one, and she smiled for the first time in days after hanging up. The Grand Lakeview, the most opulent hotel in Chicago, had a busy kitchen on the wedding day. Olivia stood in the center of the kitchen, overseeing the employees while wearing a white chef's coat, continued to reduce the sauce. Indeed, that's wonderful. She gave a young sous chef a nod. Over the preceding week, Olivia had hardly slept. She had put together the team, chosen the ingredients, created the wedding meal, and conducted many trial runs. She was aware that this dinner would mark a sea change in her professional life. She had already signed William Ellis's contract. Olivia, it has a lovely scent. William came into the kitchen. He was fiddling with his tuxedo bow tie while wearing a pricey black suit. Thank you. Olivia smiled nervously. Your visitors will be happy, I believe. I'm positive of it. A hand was placed on her shoulder by William. Are you ready? During the reception, I would want to introduce you. Olivia did a search for me. However, Jason and Brittany are today's stars, naturally. William grinned. However, great skill shouldn't be squandered. Believe me. When he was gone, Olivia inhaled deeply. When she got back to the kitchen, she finished the dishes. With more than 300 guests, the hotel ballroom was decked out in gold and white. The social elite of Chicago had come to celebrate the marriage of Brittany and Jason. The bride looked stunning in her white gown, and the ceremony was serious. A close observer, however, would have seen the stress in her grin. Olivia was absent at the ceremony. As the reception got underway, Olivia's dishes were taken to the tables one by one as the kitchen worked on last-minute preparations. Admiration erupted among the guests, and several attempted to approach the kitchen to show their gratitude. Olivia's parents, George and Martha, were seated at the main table, but were clearly uncomfortable. Their cheeks reddened with shame and regret. They continued to look toward the kitchen. William got to his feet and accepted the microphone once the final entree was served. We appreciate your presence on this momentous day for our son Jason and his stunning wife, Brittany. Ladies and gents, the audience roared in applause. I want to express my gratitude to Brittany's sister, Olivia Brown, for the delicious dinner she made for us tonight. Olivia was invited out as William held out his hand toward the kitchen. Wearing a white chef's coat, she reluctantly made her way into the ballroom. The venue's powerful light made her stand out brightly. With the Ellis family's help, she will soon launch her own restaurant. The audience erupted in cheers and surprised shouts. Brittany's grasp on her husband's arm was a clear sign of her disapproval. She has great skill. That's demonstrated by today's meal, William added. Olivia accepted the compliment with appreciation and shame. George and Martha turned aside when she gazed at her parents. Regretfully, William's tone abruptly turned harsh. An terrible event where her parents spent her funds without her consent led to the founding of this eatery. There was silence in the room. The guests exchanged startled glances. George and Martha then appeared to slump into their seats as they grew scarlet with embarrassment before her parents. Brittany also buried her face and felt ashamed in front of her husband's relatives. But we think Olivia is talented. Next month, she will make her Restaurant Nouveau debut. Please come, everyone. Olivia grinned appreciatively, but she felt torn about telling the truth in public. Brittany and her parents had been socially humiliated by William. Following the speech, couples danced on the floor as the reception went on. Olivia stood on the balcony by herself, staring up at the sky. You're there. She turned and saw William. What a speech it was. Olivia spoke those words. But did I really need to bring up my parents in public? William let out a sigh. Secrets seldom stay, but sometimes the truth hurts. Social standing is important. Brittany and your parents learned their lesson. Why are you so helpful to me? Olivia posed a serious question. I couldn't see someone with skill be treated cruelly, William replied while glancing at the heavens. and I believed that my son's marriage would not be joyful unless justice was served. Will Brittany make Jason happy? They will have to make that decision. William gave a shrug. Brittany has to learn a lot. If she is able to change, only time will tell. He held out his hand. Olivia gave it a shake. They had developed a peculiar relationship, something akin to a friendship or mentor-student relationship. Let's raise a glass. William reached into his pocket and took out a little flask. To the start of your fresh life. Olivia smiled and continued, and to justice. There was laughing and music coming from the dance floor. While dancing, the bride and groom kept looking at the two people on the balcony. Nobody had any idea how tonight's events would affect their marriage yet. The only thing that was definite was that a new chapter was starting in Olivia's life, and that her long-held desire was finally coming true. And it was taking place in a manner she never would have thought possible. A chilly wave struck Chicago on the day of her nouveau debut's big opening. Still, a big line gathered in front of the eatery. Reporters from local magazines and newspapers, culinary reviewers, and frequent customers of upscale dining establishments were all excitedly anticipating Olivia Brown's new restaurant's launch. Olivia was inside overseeing the last preparations. There were perhaps 50 chairs in her restaurant's airy, light-filled atmosphere. Despite its modest size, it demonstrated her meticulousness in every way. She turned around nervously and spotted William Ellis. Being the first customer, he had arrived very early. Following the opening, Olivia smiled and said, "A little. However, this was my dream. I'm prepared." Without a question. When it was time for the door to open, William gave her a little slap on the shoulder. Cheers came from the assembled throng as they arrived. Olivia greeted everyone at the door with warmth. They did not include her parents. The first night went really well. On the spot, Chicago's top culinary critics started drafting a review, hailing it as a rising star. Chicago is where I was born. Reservations filled up 3 months in advance, as images of the unmatched launch meals flooded social media. One day, about a month after opening, it was almost time to close. The entrance of the restaurant was opened by two familiar faces. George and Martha Brown were there. Olivia gave them a professional grin despite her little pause. "It's a privilege to greet you both," she answered coolly. "I'll set the table." Her parents looked anxious during the meal and looked at Olivia every now and then after. George got up and walked up to Olivia just as the restaurant was closing. "It was delicious," he remarked. Emotion suffocated his voice. "Daughter, you have my admiration." Olivia had a nonchalant response, "Thank you." "Yes." Martha also got up and sobbed. "We sincerely apologize for not understanding your talent and for betraying your trust." Olivia inhaled deeply. "Although I will never be able to forget what you did, I may eventually be able to forgive." Although it wasn't a full reconciliation, it was a start. In addition to continuing to pay back the $150,000 stipulated in the contract, her parents were having difficulty regaining their social position. A large number of their pals had turned away. After the wedding event, Brittany's marriage was not going well. She was often viewed as Olivia's sister, and her relationship with the Ellis family had soured. She was also starting to see cracks in her relationship with Jason. "Has she gotten back to you?" One evening when he was at the restaurant, William inquired. "No." Olivia gave a head shake. "It appears that she still believes she is the victim." William replied philosophically that some problems can be resolved with time. However, not everyone gains knowledge from the restaurant's success. Olivia was encircled by a network of new acquaintances, co-workers, and others who recognized and valued her ability. Her life was now fuller and more satisfying than it had been. Olivia stood on the restaurant's balcony and looked up at the stars one evening after it had closed. She felt a cold air brush over her cheeks as the lights of Chicago stretched out below her. She thought back on the previous 6 months, the conflict with her family, the betrayal, the broken trust, and the unanticipated help and achievement. Sometimes life presents unanticipated gifts, and other times it is unjust. Olivia inhaled deeply. Her heart was slowly losing its fury. Her past no longer held her captive. She had a great future in store, a future she had earned by her own skill and hard work. Nouveau debut, a fresh start. Her life itself was symbolized by the name of her restaurant,